Did it
Hello,
now?
welcome to Coderact, everyone. My name is James. I'm the Chief of Staff of Community and Culture. I guess the way in which, as you guys know, Codirect is meant for uh, staff to share organizational updates with members, and for us to have and share announcements, but also have substantive discussion about some of the key questions that we're sort of like figuring out. So, looking forward to hearing from you all. Feel free to ask questions, ask us to clarify things. This is really an interactive space to discuss. And so we're going to start with a couple announcements, and then we'll end with sort of a robust discussion around our member groups. So I'm going to start with Johnny. Is going to share a little announcement about our investor report. I'll pass it over to Johnny.
Thank you, James. And thank you all for being with us in community with us. We're excited about the investor report. I don't know if we're going to run through the investor report, but definitely excited. We can scroll down. And so I'm not sure how familiar folks are with traditional investor reports. Where you talk about the returns on the investment, who invests, what the portfolio looks like, which is, in other words, the makeup of your funding. But typically, we want to do something a little different with this investor report, wanting it to continue to tell our story, particularly our community story. So we have a forward/introductory from your very own Nia Evans, a little backstory. We could pause at the dates, gazing back. Um, Thank you so much. So in talking about capital, there's all these different types of investments that people tend to talk about. And so, one initially when we talk about the fund, we talk about capital investment, actual money going into somewhere, being deployed or being invested in. But we want to make sure that we talk about investment holistically. And so there is the sweat equity and there's the initial investment by people, by our community, by working class folks of color, by those who made this possible for all of us to kind of be here. So it's important to honor those contributions. And so one of the first things that we wanted to talk about, and Nia hits it right on in the introduction, but typically in the different ways that we made this happen. And so one of the pieces for me that I'm really happy about and how we put this out is all the different contributions, particularly some of the milestones that individuals were a part of in creating, starting back in 2016. Also knowing that there are a lot of other contributions that are before then, but there was only so much that we can capture, and we can continue going. And we talk about how much we've raised so far. We're a little bit past that number now. So every day it grows that much closer to getting to that 5 million fund goal. And the total investments that we put out so far at 200,000. And then we hear directly from the two organizations that we've invested in. There are two different types of investments. Feel free to read a little bit more about those. I won't go too much into detail. So if you haven't read this yet, I'll leave some pieces in here, not enough spoiler alerts. Some really cool quotes throughout the report, really cool color palette, but I'll talk about the individuals that were responsible for that. A little bit more about myself, and then kind of like investment strategy and where we go from here and how we're thinking about lending. And then, we can pause right here at key features of our investment strategy. And really wanted to highlight the fact that we have this capital coming in, this influx and this flow of capital, and making sure that we're being responsible about how we lend, which also means that as capital comes in, that we're being very intentional and not rushing to get capital out the door. And for those who are a little bit more fiscally conservative, and I've heard some of those viewpoints as well, which is 5 million. So let's get 5 million out the door as fast as we can to return returns in general. And we want to be careful about how we do that. We know that there's a good level of faith and trust from our community that we're going to do the right thing in terms of deploying capital. But we also want to move in a way that we respect and protect the integrity of our process. And so for those who probably look at some of these numbers and go, 7 deals by the end of the year, another 7 by next year, another 8. Aren't those kind of small? Not at all. We want to be very, very realistic and conservative about what we want to do, because we understand the importance of the fact that they're working class folks who've invested in us and the fund, and we want to be smart, diligent, and responsible how we get that money out the door. And we can move a little bit further down. Thank you, James. Keep going. We speak to our ecosystem, and we have some direct quotes from different folks who are part of our ecosystem, like King Boston, Beckma, City Light Verde, which were, some awesome quotes in there, which would be great for everyone else to kind of capture. Really want to make sure that folks always understand that the way that we move is the idea that we connect to something much bigger than us, the individual, the organization, but a broader ecosystem that's trying to create a ripple effect and trying to create a multiplier effect, both in attitude, behavior, and systematic change. We wrap it up with dreaming together, and I want to just pause here really quickly. I just want to highlight really quickly the actual team. There's the Ujima community. There's our members. There's those of you that show up all the time, every single week, week in, week out, before me, regardless. Like there's some diehards, right? We also wanted to lift up the contributions of immediate staff members. I just want to say their names just to be very clear. Alexander Shaw, who was an intern, who has moved on by the beginning of the year, this year. James Van Bowie, who's also here, Chief of Staff. Jane Jaffard, Business Alliance Coach. We have Martin Familia, Director of Finance, who actually represents CED, our fiscal sponsor. But particularly, acts as if he's one of our staff. And so we appreciate him a lot. Mercedes, who is here as our Arts and Culture Fellow. We have Nia Evans, who y'all already know is a force, who's in everything that we do and make sure that, hold us accountable in every single way, and has a very clear vision that we tend to follow. Last but not least, I want to just shout out these folks, and we got one of them in this space, and just want to say big ups to Samala Debbie, who is a grad student and also an intern here with Ujima, who's a part of the planning, the processing, the managing of this project, and Sierra Peters for her vision, graphics, editing, the whole 9 yards. These folks, particularly two women of color, strong intellectuals, great creatives who are part of making this really possible. And so whenever y'all get a chance, feel free to embarrass them and say, great job on the investor report.
We love you.
They did an awesome job, straight up.
Great job.
And so, and that's the end of that. And really, really would love for you all just to take a look, read through it. There's a lot of work that was done, that was put forward, and I'm not talking about just staff, but your voices are replicated throughout the report. And so without y'all, we wouldn't have this. And so this is the first of its kind. We'll be doing 2 of these a year, but there'll be this site, Necessary Systems, where we'll be updating this report in terms of the numbers, some of the, some briefing in terms of where we are with investment. But in terms of what to look for, the bigger reports will be twice a year. So beginning of the year and as well as July. And I think that's what we've determined moving forward. So again, congratulations to the team, and lift them whenever you get a chance.
Johnny, there's a question in the chat from Marsha, I believe. And the question was, what is the return?
Yeah, so the fund has a very great question. Thank you so much. The fund has a very interesting, creative structure, and it's structured within notes. And the notes have different terms, right? And so you've got your Kuji Chakalia, where we're looking at 3 years, and depending on whether you're accredited or accredited investor, you have options in terms of what returns that you select for, and how much you want to invest in. So without having to look at our official document that specifically states what those interest returns are, I would say, you and I can talk offline or I can send some of this information over to you, Marsha. And it's on the website as well. If you click invest, it has overall information. I just want to make sure the information is factual as you walk away from it, to be specific, because there's a list of different returns for each individual note.
Okay, I guess I was thinking, I mean, I know when you invest, you get returns monetarily, but and there's also venture capital, which is very different. But I mean, has Ujima thought about, returns in terms of the community, like investing some of those returns into the, in the community? Can it, like, what do they call it? Designated funds or something like that, designated returns. Has that been thought about?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things that we're thinking about, right? So there's a list of different products by the way of loan products that we offer. Majority of them are specifically to small businesses because they're a catalyst to a lot of changes, because they're employers in our community, and hopefully they're employing our folks. But we also have infrastructure loan deals as well too. And so we're also looking at what does it mean to deploy capital into infrastructure change, as well as real estate. And so real estate would be community owned land. And we are beginning to have those conversations. We'd love to have those conversations with the broader community. In terms of the venture capital, in a way that they're designed a little different. And so there are annual returns. So depending on what note you invest in, there are like this monetary annual returns that come in. But in terms of like the community impact and that you can have, and if you're talking about like, hey, how can we reallocate money to like structural changes in our community?
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so there are different ways. There are different ways we look at that, and there are different conversations to be had. And so one of the things I'll say, so I'll leave it at two. There is one particular investment that we did with a local CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. Help me out with the acronym, guys. CFNE.
Co-op Fund of New England.
There we go. I always say CFNE. Thank you so much. And we've invested specifically in that institution, who is also nominated, supported by our community as a place to designate our money, because we believe that the way to deploy money is really about supporting our community. And so we invested $100,000 at 2% for 1 year, specifically in that institution. So that would be like an infrastructure investment. In terms of really talking a little bit more about what other investments we can make and create together, I think one of the ways we can do that is by showing up to Assembly. Our Assembly is from February 14th through 22nd. There's open call. There'll be ongoing conversations about how do we create change, but there'll be specific conversations about nominating small businesses. Who do we nominate? How do we nominate them? And setting context for how we want to do investment. And I think, with some of your questions, I think that's a great place to have that. It doesn't mean that we can't have it here.
Right.
If you want to expand on that a little bit more, we can talk offline. But one of the ways to show up is by participating in our Assembly process.
Okay, and can you maybe write the dates of that in the chat room?
Yep. Yeah, you got it.
Know. Okay.
Great question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So we're going to pivot, and I'm going to give a little bit of an update about our feasibility study. So let me just share screen again. Okay, can y'all see my screen? Okay, sweet. So feasibility studies upcoming this month. So as y'all know, through the community needs process, we have created, 14 community needs, which are actually outlined in the investor report. Look at all these tie-ins: Assembly, investor report, feasibility studies. So this month, we're going to be discussing sit-down restaurants, which was identified as a community need. Next month in March, we will be discussing bookstores. And finally, in April, we will be discussing, sorry, just one second. In April, we will be discussing coffee shops. So those are our next 3 feasibility studies. And that's my update. My update is really short. So I'm gonna pass it to James. Does anybody have any questions? Let me just stop there. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Sierra. So yeah, super excited to share with you all even more updates related to our Citywide Assembly. As Johnny mentioned, our Citywide Assembly is coming. It's in about 2.5 weeks. It's February 14th to February 22nd. It's entitled We Be Knowing, a Boston Ujima Project celebration of everyday democracy. And just to offer you guys sort of how we talk about, how we're thinking about the word, the framing, we have the knowledge that's been historically and compulsively regarded as informal or disregarded entirely. We've been known as a recognition of oral histories, folktales, and futures. We've been known as a collection of community planning and cultural events presented by the Boston Ujima Project, which honors their expertise and expressions of our communities. We gather to make decisions about our community, learn from our people, and vibe to music we made. We knew, we've been knowing, we be knowing. And super excited to invite you all to our collection of events. At the heart of our event is a vote, a decision making process that is going to happen during our Citywide Assembly, which is February 18th. We're sort of underway building out that process to really gather insight, community voice on ratifying our Citywide investment plan. Sort of what we're going to do with that, the next steps there. That's going to be sort of a key question that we're going to ask community members and members of Ujima. Outside of that, as you can see, we have a variety of different cultural events happening. I want to give you guys some updates on some of them. Where was the one? Let me see. Yeah, so for I guess, open house. I guess to start to give you guys a sense of open house. Open house, as is noted, is going to be a space for us to share with everyone who the Boston Ujima Project is, and really elevate our member engagement, our member work. So really giving a space for a variety of our member groups to offer insight into like what their member group does, and opportunities for people who are unfamiliar with their work to possibly join. And of course, sharing directives about what we as staff do and what they can come to us for will be helpful, because I know we're a new staff. And so this will be a good spot for people who are who are really interested in learning about Ujima, but have yet to come to like an info session, but really want to get a sense of our world. This is a good spot to come. So our neighborhood needs workshop. So we have a number of needs that we're gonna be sort of revisiting. That's gonna be happening during this workshop. And so to better understand whether or not these are in fact the right needs that we want to prioritize in this moment. I guess I think that these are needs been collected for a few years now. And so there's a need for us to revisit them. So that's gonna be happening on February 16th. Still working out some of the details there. Transnational organizing, super excited. This is going to be an event that's really going to elevate the ways in which people have cared for each other this past year across the world. And so there's definitely been an increase, a lot of work that's happening here locally. And we're hoping to really elevate the mutual aid work that's happened here in Boston and Roxbury, as well as give space to organizers in Africa and parts of South America that have been similarly doing sort of mutual aid care work in their communities, for us to share their work, but also really identify commonalities in the work, and especially as it relates to just Ujima and how we think about collective work and responsibility. And so super excited about this. It's going to be moderated by Didi Delgado, who's come to our events as a member. And so, yeah, this will be a really cool panel. Other Worlds by Jacoby Satterwhite and Jonathan Linden Chase. It's going to be really exciting sort of artistic lecture that's going to offer space. But these are both sort of artists that explore queerness, body, dimension, sort of digital realms as a sort of like space for, I don't know, wholeness, liberation, agency. They talk a lot about body. They're very colorful artists. Similar themes. Both friends, and we're really excited. The way the format's going to work is that both will share sort of insight on their recent work, and then we'll pivot onto them and being in conversation with each other. And so for folks who are interested in art, who have creative interests, I think this will be a good space for you guys to come and get some and hear their words. And after this, we're going to have a DJ set by D-Diggs. So that'd be like the after party. Black Trust. So yeah, just came in. So we're gonna be Kaisi Lemon's gonna be sharing some of his work with us. And we recently today confirmed Portia Olawole who is currently the Nobel laureate of the city, is also going to be joining Kaisi for our Black Trust. As you know, our Black Trust has been a reoccurring program, really elevating artists and thought leaders in the space of solidarity economy. And so we're really excited about this. This is going to be our closing event. If you come to our Black Trust, you know what this is about. So you already know. So yeah. Oh yeah, brewing culture. So we are being Lamplighter Brewery, which is in Cambridge, Somerville, is sponsoring this event. We're going to be really highlighting Black brewers in Boston. There's a number of Black Black brew folks here that have Black beer companies, and we really just want to create space for them to share about their experience. Why are there Black beer companies here? Is there like advantages to it? Are there sort of barriers? And so really giving space to hear what their experience is. And also it's going to be a tasting. So I think we've secured 2 or 3 beer companies, I forget. And so there'll be space for folks to pick up beer from Lamplighter. And actually this Wednesday, this is happening actually on a Wednesday, we'll have like an interactive sort of tasting conversation with folks who register. So super exciting, super cool. I'm really excited about this one. Yeah. That is our Citywide Assembly. Any questions, thoughts, reactions?
My reaction is, how are we supposed to pick just one? We'll be on Zoom all week. Originally, when I was looking, I'm like, I'll just go to one, but clearly that's not going to happen.
Options, right? Kind of options.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great series. Do we have any more thoughts? Looks like somebody's popping off in the chat. Yes, that is the plan. This looks bomb. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So we're actually going to pivot into the discussion portion. So today we're actually going to be talking about member teams. Can y'all see this? Okay. Member teams. So previously we had talked about, our member teams are super flexible. We can create member teams and we can think about new ones as well. So just to give y'all a little bit of context, member teams are an avenue for co-creation within Ujima. They were designed to be flexible and up for examination and change. There is room to suggest new member teams that align with both our members' interests and what they want to contribute to Ujima and Ujima's needs at the organizational level. For example, Ujima's fundraiser team was created at the suggestion of a member, who was on the investor outreach team and did not feel like it was suitable for his deep non-investor orienting fundraising experience. As needs and priorities of Ujima shifts, so should our member teams. So we have talked at the staff level about, how we can start to think about this. And so there will be no changes to podcast creation, business support, arts and cultural organizing member team, or the anchor institution outreach team. We think, and so the proposed changes are that we unmerge the outreach team from the investor outreach team and revamp investor outreach and expand the scope to become an investor relations team. Unresolved possibilities. Time banking team could be a function that's held at the organizational level with a dedicated staff hire. As you know, some of our teams have struggled a little bit with consistent attendance. And so we just want to honor the fact that, maybe it is a little difficult for a difficult work to do, in an hour and 15 minutes once a month. And so we want to be real about that.
Yeah, and also it like demands sometimes a higher level, like it sometimes demands employee intervention, or at least that has often been the expectation for some staff members.
Yeah. And so, and thinking about this, we're thinking about what happens to UNESCO after we're finished with all of the 14 needs. What happens when we're finished with the feasibility studies, right? So the Ujima Neighborhood Study Group would morph into Participatory Planning team after the feasibility studies are finished, but otherwise no changes. And again, these are all suggestions. We're going to talk about it at the end. Proposals for currently inactive teams. So we would eliminate the youth engagement team and focus on strengthening engagement with youth-focused orgs. We would relaunch the evaluation member team to coincide with the hire of a Ujima researcher. We're going to be looking for that in Q2, I believe, for that position, sorry. And we would relaunch the financial education member team no earlier than Q2 with a redefined focus. Maybe it's a study group space like the UNESCO team was originally designed as. Maybe it aligns with the financial education program that's currently in development. All proposed changes would go into effect in Q2. Questions?
Sierra, this is Joyce. When does Q2 start?
Q2 would start in April, right? March or April, yeah.
March or April?
Yes.
Okay.
So I know that we had previously had discussions about maybe even shifting around some member teams. We talked about perhaps, having some teams be in the last week of the month as opposed to the first week. So I really just want to give space to anybody who has an opinion on member team functions, if you want to suggest a new member team.
Can we move podcast?
Absolutely.
To the 4th Wednesday?
Oh,
yeah. It was, I'm sorry. I think we had a different day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you speak a little more to why we should change the day?
So we were thinking, one, because we had a member want to join podcasts, but because there was another team happening at the same time, specifically arts and culture, it kind of leads into a problem if you want to be creative in one sense and not being able to be creative in your other sense. So we thought changing the podcast, because it's a smaller team, would be more feasible than changing arts and culture. And I do think it wasn't even a Wednesday night. I feel like we chose like a Tuesday or Thursday. I have to look back at my notes. But I'm all for a change. I'm all for it.
Awesome. Thank you, Joyce.
Mhm.
Just for anybody who's just joining us, we're talking about or discussing changes in member team structure, focus. If y'all want to suggest new member teams, this is the time, the platform to do that.
There is also a part 2 to the slides, which I can go over, Sierra, when you're ready.
Oh, sure.
Before you jump in, Jenny, I just wanted to flag in the notes that I did my best to get all of the different proposals and definitely missed some. I put it like in a bold note that it's highlighted, so just so folks know to look at the slides.
Thank you.
All
Jen?
right. So to continue the conversation, just wanted to make sure we said this earlier, or Sierra said this earlier, that there's room for members to suggest member teams that align with your interests and or contribute to Ujima and Ujima's needs at the organizational level. As most of you guys know, this is a space where we really believe in collaborative effort in creating a new Boston. So we just wanted to really communicate that there is space for that, but we do have expectations. So the expectations, next slide, please, are that staff will not be doing the heavy lifting and organizing as a group. As we establish with our member team, as we've been rotating, we'll engage as a support, but we don't want to take the lead because all member teams should be, for the most part, self-organizing. We're not restricting this to Wednesdays, and it does not have to start this quarter. So here are some proposals that or prospects for new member teams that we've discussed on the staff level. And Kelsey, feel free to just say, look at slide at this portion and not type any of this. So the first one was a wellness team proposal. Endless possibilities, but some brainstorms that we've originally had from the Ujima team to start off the conversation. And I will take a brief pause to get insight from the team, questions, thoughts, feelings, are that this team would help with the mutual aid and connection component that Ujima works with. So we have local aid networks that we participate in, so they would help in that space. Mental health and mindfulness aspect. If we don't realize the importance of mental health in 2021 after surviving 2020 and still possibly having to survive 2021 again, I don't know what else to say. Planning health events and really focusing on the fact that our bodies should be healthy and it doesn't need to be perfect. So having conversation on health topics, exploring conventional and non-conventional aspects of health and I believe medicine. So if there's acupuncture or doulas or anything like that. So we want this team, we are proposing that this team just explore wellness. We're also not, I believe, definitive on the name of the team. So this is completely up for discussion. And I will take a brief pause to get thoughts, feedback, either in the chat or you guys can unmute your mics. Going once. Going twice. So the next team.
Hold on. Hold on. Mental health and mindfulness aspect. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
I don't, what does that mean?
What can it mean?
Jenny, if I could just jump in. I think that it's important. I think that this was brought up because we thought that it was important for our member teams to kind of have a frame. And so we're hoping that, the member team themselves would decide on the frame. But we're hoping that mental health and mindfulness as practices would be involved in, the wellness team's foundational structure. So whether that's planning events, like it says, that are talking about mental health and mindfulness practices, or educating, maybe doing a month-long workshop with us that would regard mental health and mindfulness. The possibilities, I think, are pretty endless.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Can we please not use mental health? Can we use something else that doesn't have such a negative connotation to it?
Absolutely.
Because many times when you hear mental health, it has a stigma attached with it in our communities.
Mhm.
So if we could use like mindfulness or behavioral health, but mental health definitely has a stigma in the community. So it would just behoove us, I think, to kind of not put, it's the word mental, I feel like, with health that just sends people over the edge, because it's just hard to talk about because you feel like then you have a problem, opposed to just recognizing that everybody has something that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it could be framed emotional health.
Right. Hi, Masha.
Hi, Joyce.
Thank you both. We're definitely, and this member team is definitely open. This is just our proposal, so we want to make sure that all these things will be captured, and we're definitely going to talk about these. I see we got another, Dr. S in the chat, Chris Lean, talking about emotional well-being. Okay.
What is, Sierra, can you talk a little bit about exploring conventional and non-conventional aspects of health?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of times in America and in the US, context, we think mostly about Western medicine and Western medicinal practices, and we don't necessarily honor or excavate our own indigenous, practices. So whether that be, like Jenny was saying, like acupuncture, or, things, I don't know, I'm just thinking about things that are like indigenous to our communities that aren't necessarily uplifted as being real,
Right.
in quotes. That we think that we should explore.
I like the wellness team. Good job.
Herbal-based medicine, yes. Tea, singing, body movement. We know that movement work is super important, right? Like moving your body. We sit all day. For some people, that are sitting down all day, we have to remember to move, to get out, to walk. Just all these things.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right.
Great questions, y'all.
Yeah.
And suggestions. That was awesome. The next proposal was for participatory planning. I feel like Sierra mentioned really briefly about this, that UNESCO, after the feasibility studies, could transition probably to this, but the name is not definite or stuck. Again, just like we just did. It's open for feedback. Some musing so far that we've had as a staff is to create a space for members to collaborate with us on our process and hear from them more, and possibly assist in thinking and planning assemblies. So that is just the ideation from the staff level so far. Oh, there's a bug, Jesus. All right, the next group would be the member proposal for member engagement and organizing. Again, the names are not stuck. They're pretty fluid as of right now, and it's to celebrate new members and members' experience, and really to talk and explore member experience at large. How do we define it? What does it look like? How do we intentionally create it? That is what we've lifted up.
I was thinking about that a little bit, sort of the idea of like, I don't want to say like welcoming committee, but just sort of like maybe, or even if it was like a rotation of people that sort of like, like this month, these people will do sort of like a newcomers meeting, or like just sort of an intro meeting, or or something like that, or do different engagements with new members. That can be cool.
Yeah, no, 100%, Claudia. And I was thinking about this actually as like, experience design or like user design. Kelsey in the chat says, love this one. I could totally picture someone giving an orientation to Ujima almost as a mentor or a guide, a way to onboard almost, but more informally. I love that. Thank you, Kelsey.
Yeah. We love all of this, so that's why we're making space and pausing. Thank you guys so much for the feedback. I'm gonna, okay. And I actually might have to tag Sierra and Johnny into this, but for the member fund management committee, I don't know if I'm mixing it with the investor relations, or if we were playing around with the name, but basically this would be to intentionally connect with investors in Boston Ujima Project. And by investors, I mean, the folks in our neighborhoods and greater investors, and thanking them and really establishing genuine and personable touches during the experience, like actually receiving a text or a call saying thank you for investing in Ujima, and really having that member touch. So I believe that's what we were thinking or processing on the staff level, but I'm going to make space for either Sierra, Johnny, or James to share any more that I may be missing.
I think you were spot on, Jenny.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say one thing. I think with all transparency, I think there's a missed opportunity that we have in not being able to really thank investors and those who are investing in the work that we do. And so every now and then we'll have a call to clarify what does it mean to invest in Ujima and in the fund. And so I think for us, it's a matter of how do we honor the individuals who are investing, not just by returns, but by really securing, honoring relationships, which is like the central tenet of what we do. And so for us, it's like, how do we continue to put our community first? And so it's no different from onboarding people on. It's just like, hey, thank you. Would you like to hear more about what we do and what you just invested in? So that's just my 2 cents. But thank you, Jenny. I think you did a great job.
Thank you for your 2 cents, Johnny Charles, Managing Director. And then the last one is, last one that we've discussed, not last possibility, is a coalitions policy grassroots organizing. We threw as many words as possible into that. But basically to represent Boston Ujima Project in our, I can't say the word, you guys, my accent is about to come out. It's 9.
Coalitional work.
Thank you, Sierra. Coalitional work. And we are part of some major coalition. There's actually a new one that just started today, had a first meeting, New Boston. So this would really help with engaging this work outside of not just the Ujima staff, because we believe that this work is done with the community. So this member team would be an active component in participating with the work that we're doing within various coalition, and to create action alerts for our community. That's some of the thoughts that we've had so far, but again, open for thoughts and feedback. I believe that's the last one.
Very excited for this group. Very excited. Just wanted to say that I'm happy y'all are thinking about this, especially because I've talked about this with other people. It's very difficult to be involved in solidarity economy pushing and advocacy unless you are working for one of the organizations. So I think this group in particular is meeting a huge need in the community for folks who want to reimagine, want to keep building things like Ujima and community solutions, because it's hard sometimes to get involved. So just wanted to put out all the good energy. Good job.
I appreciate that you stopped the notes just to be like, you guys, I'm very excited. We appreciate it a lot. Any other thoughts, comments, or feedback before we transition to member team? Yes, Chrisleen says true, lots of options in the chat.
100%. And go ahead, Joyce.
Oh, wow. I thought I was muted. Have you guys talking about the temperature of well, the world or the United States right now? Like, have we talked about a place where we can come and talk about that? Like, I don't know. I know. I'm just thinking, like, if we're talking about people being open and being healthy and being well, then are we also creating a space where we can start to have more conversations about, what's happening, how people are feeling? I mean, Black in America is very different right now than it was 2 days ago, 3 days ago, a week ago. So out of all the, just the good feel meetings and stuff, is there also talk about just having that kind of space as well? Because I think it's important. I think it has so much to do with our behavioral health and emotional health.
So I guess I can try to answer that question. I don't think we have, as of right now, a specific event that's meant to sort of gather us in reflection around what's happening right now. It sounds like politically, it sounds like you're kind of suggesting.
Excuse me?
Are you saying like what's happening politically and just?
Oh, no, not politically.
Just like.
I'm talking about with Black and Brown right now in America and what's happening and just how things are just uncomfortable, things are uncomfortable. And do we have it set up so that if someone was to ask us, what should we do about this or that? Do we have a space for that?
So Kingsley is asking like racism. I think that's what you're alluding to, Joyce. And I think that is something that is the undercurrent of all of our work. It's not named explicitly, but when we look at all these groups, like I think that what they're attempting to do is thinking about like what it means to live in America as living in America and creating spaces for POC today. But I do want to, Claudia, you have your hand raised, so I'm going to give you.
Yeah, and I just want to finish my thought real fast and say that we don't have a current event plan right now, but I do think that we have been pretty intentional about thinking about healing and time for us to process and to grieve this time. And in fact, that was going to be a key effort in our Citywide Assembly this year. But we just because of capacity, we just didn't have the ability to execute that. But and I think that at least in my thought around that event, it wouldn't be so like conversational as much as it would be a space of just experience and like personal sort of reflection around this time and doing that in a way that sort of doing that in community with other people, but there be a sort of like spiritual grounding, a spiritual sort of like offering that people can sort of anchor themselves onto. And so we have been talking about this as it being a space to like memorialize COVID-19 and the Black lives that we lost in the last year. And so that could take on a lot of different functions, but I think having a conversation about this is not like at least how I was thinking about it, but it just be a sort of spiritual space. And so that is on the docket, and I guess I just want to name that. That's something we're thinking about happening later in the spring.
Claudia?
Hi, good evening.
Hey, yeah, I was just kind of thinking when some of the events that they did at Boston University were, and I wonder if this could be something that I know the sort of like the emotional well-being or however that sort of mindfulness / emotional well-being group manifests. One of the things that I think people thought was really helpful was just like having the space to share. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be conversational, but maybe that could be like a kickoff that gets spurred out of that, or maybe that's a kickoff initiative to do through that group. And yeah, I was also thinking about what you were saying, James, with the other event that was going to take place as well. But I think just having that space, whether it's just like a download space for people to be able to just like turn up and share, and maybe that could be led by people with that skill set.
Yeah, and we're open to continue to explore and see other possibilities. So feel free to like reach out to us about what y'all think is possible. Because we definitely see the need for it. So we're gonna pivot because we're a little over time, y'all.
Thank you.
But super grateful to all of you all for your insight, thoughts, comments, and feel free to continue to offer them outside of this time. And so I guess, should we stop the recording?
Yes, goodbye, YouTube.
Bye.